Hello, and welcome back to the second half of Spirit Talk Show with Norman. We are still doing these AI generated stories and talking about people's interesting careers and their lives. I love that part of the show. Um, we are, if you guys would like to get involved, go to spirittalkshow.com. You can see all the information there about listening to past shows. Of course, you can find us on Spotify and Apple and KBOO 96.5, the voice of Sacramento. Norm, we were talking about, we forgot to read the prompt at the end of last half. So can you read the prompt there, and then we'll talk about.
Yeah, we talked about Kai, and the prompt was to write a story using Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a set of psychological principles,
Yeah.
using the pyramid of the needs that motivate people. Individuals' most basic needs at the base of the pyramid are physiological. Once they've fulfilled these needs, people move on to their safety needs, social well-being, self-esteem, ultimately to their need for self-actualization.
So when you guys are talking about that, how are you connecting it to coming on this show? Because I know you and your partner Ed, right? We're talking about this. So how did that how conversation come up?
Well, the conversation of Maslow's came up because of the fact that when we think about how we came to be in the early 80s, the value was to be able to actualize ourselves based on the identity. The identity was fear, as early coming out in the early 80s, which seems odd given it was the 80s and it was already 40 some years ago. And the value of self-actualization evolves from the ability to demonstrate yourself, in our case, as individuals through graduation and university studies out to work life, to career paths, as we said earlier, to have an affect, not necessarily being effective. Certainly effective is running a business, so to speak, but the affect is the psychological ability to feel a warmth of trust and transparency and commonality in your community, to be with people like you. And, growing up gay, certainly for me in a farm town of Elk Grove, was not an easy place. And yet, we raised our children in Elk Grove during the time of its expansion from countryhood to cityhood. And it was, at the time in the 90s, one of the seventh largest growing diverse communities in the country. I could have never imagined that growing up in Elk Grove with 2,500 people and, fish farms all over the place and dairies, with people who had really conservative thought about the evolution of our society. And, I knew from the time I was 5 that I was gay. And yet traversing through Elk Grove as a country place was fascinating to actually come back after my parents, my father left the area. My mother stayed in the area, that it became my city. And I raised children there, and we had business Montessori schools in Elk Grove and worked with the school district to establish the charter public school as a Montessori community. And it was revolutionary to think that you could do that when I felt such fear in my early years as a kid who was different.
But a lot of people, and I know people in my life who have a very, talking about the hierarchy of needs, they seem to be stuck in a level, they're just going to work and drinking and coming home and maybe going and playing golf on the weekend. There's not that, I've just described the wholeness of their life. Mm-hmm. And they seem to be stuck in this pattern of no actualization. What do you really love? What gets you excited? What do you want to do with your life? And so many people get stuck.
I think that part of what self-actualization is, and certainly in my early years as a Montessorian, I came to learn that you learn to love what you do so that you can go out and do what you love. And I say that with students that I work with in the adult higher education community every day. If you're going to move through some 4 to 6 years of acquiring a degree, whether it's an associate, whether it's a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate, or you get a certificate and go out into the workplace, you do it because that's what you love. And with that, ideally, you work toward happiness and joyfulness. And those are warm and fuzzy words, but they really are meaningful pieces when you feel as if, ironically, as a gay man, that I'm together with my spouse for 42 years consistently. My parents weren't even married that
That's
long.
like 1,000 years in gay years.
Right,
Yeah.
right. If you convert it to dog life,
Yeah.
right? It's just beyond comprehension. I think the value of Maslow's hierarchy and Kai's life that we read earlier is really equivalent to living such a short life. You have to really muster up the value to live a quality life, that you don't say no to anything, that you say yes. There's a book out called Getting to Yes. I know it's a negotiation strategy framework, and the value of that is beautiful. I just recently read a book by Scott Shigioka, and fortunately, I'm going to bring him as a keynote to Sacramento City College in January. He wrote the book called Seek, about having curiosity.
Yeah.
And he actually went across the country during the COVID era to look at investigating people and why we were so polarized. And it's the value of curiosity. It's what you just talked about, that, if we're going to live life, let's live it holistically, right? I mean, the right can say it needs to be family. What is family? I didn't have a relationship with my father for the last 30 years due to alcoholism and the exacerbation of ego. And he did the best he could. And, could I move beyond that? I did. I made a promise to my grandmother that I would get a doctoral degree. And it took me 50 years to, be strong enough in my identity to actually do it. And I finished it at 54. But it allowed a transformative element in my life that I'm here to offer purpose to others. That's what I serve.
That's great. That's so profound. There's people that you're helping, and you found something that you love to do. People always say you got to find what you love, but sometimes it's hard to find something you love. I think sometimes the best you can do is find something you really like to do, right?
Yes.
Because it's what I'd love to do is be an actor and singer and like a movie director. They're really hard things to do, right?
Yeah.
But I really like teaching, right? So so sometimes find what you love is hard to find, but something you really like and you're good at is really satisfying to find.
Yeah.
So, so I want you to read. I wrote this story,
Okay.
and it's based on. I just grabbed your GPT, grabbed your profile from Sac City, and it's extensive. It's like 3 pages long.
Wow.
And it wrote a story.
Are people really going to want to listen to it?
I think you'd be surprised what people
Okay.
want to listen to. I think people
I
definitely.
haven't seen it, so.
I think I can find 25,000 people who want to listen to you.
Wow.
Because those 25,000 people that you have affected with the years that you touched their lives as their teacher and educator. So
I think eventually I'll have to come back. I'm working on writing a children's book. It'll be my first, about a childhood experience that I had. And
you should come back and read that
Yeah.
on a show. I would love
Okay.
that. Read an original piece.
all right.
So, I feel like I had some stories I wanted to do that were silly and fun, but I'm just so touched by your experience and stuff, and I have this profound feeling about the strength and the love that you give the community, and like everything the gift you give to people in this area. I almost don't want to get silly with it because I feel like I feel like, oh, well, this is so cool. So we're going to read this story, which is the story about your profile. Okay.
All
So I'll
right.
let you, and it's going to make it a little embarrassing because it's about you and it's kind of made
Wow.
up.
Sounds so egocentric
Yeah.
already.
Well, it's okay to stop and say, okay, wait, that's not true. You don't have to
Okay.
read it. You can say
Okay.
like, okay, because we can stop and laugh about it too. That's
Okay.
okay. Okay.
That's good.
Well, there you go. So,
Wow. All right. Well, the title is called A Legacy of Learning, Dr. Norman Lorenz's Journey in Education. Dr. Norman Lorenz, known as Norman, sat at his desk, sunlight streaming through the window of his Sacramento City College office. His gaze traveled over the stacks of papers, student assignments, and the ever-present Montessori text that he had shaped his life's work. After some 42 years of dedication to education, Lorenz's passion for teaching and leadership had only deepened. Born from a desire to shape not just students, but educators, Lorenz's journey had been one of tireless commitment to fostering environments where learning could thrive. He began his career as a Montessori teacher, working with young children in the environments carefully designed to nurture their innate curiosity. The Montessori principles, respect for the learner, the power of self-directed education, and the belief in the potential of every student became the foundation of his approach to teaching. These ideals would carry him from the primary classroom to founding and directing teacher education programs all the way to the halls of higher education. In 2000, Lorenz co-founded the California Montessori Project, a public charter school serving children from transitional kindergarten through 8th grade. It was a monumental step in bringing Montessori pedagogy to the public sphere. The California Montessori Project and other initiatives he led, such as River Montessori Charter School and the Cottonwood School most recently, did just expand access to Montessori education. They integrated its principles into the fabric of public education. But Dr. Lorenz's vision extended beyond just creating schools. As a professor at Sacramento City College, his vision evolved to including shaping the next generation of educators. Over decades of service, he brought Montessori methodologies into the higher education space, melding them with modern pedagogical and andragogical theories and principles. He recognized that student success was not simply about mastering content, but about fostering a sense of equity, connection, and self-improvement or empowerment. His work in higher education was transformative. As a faculty coordinator for professional development and a cohort leader for the first-year experience, Lorenz was integral to creating a learning environment that centered on student equity and success. By blending psychology and sociology with education, he crafted a flipped model of instruction that engaged students in self-determined, relationship-based learning. The results were clear. Students felt empowered, prepared not only for their careers, but for the life beyond the classroom. Lorenz's work with the organizations like the Project for Educational Research, the Scales Project, or PERTS, amplified his influence on a national scale. The Student Experience Project, he collaborated with educators across the country, developing tools and strategies for fostering equitable academic engagement. His commitment to promoting success across racial, cultural, and socioeconomic lines had long been a core tenet of his work, and now it was reaching new heights. Reflecting on the thousands of students he had impacted, whether directing through his teaching or indirectly through the educators he had trained, Lorenz smiled. His life's work was a testament to the enduring power of education, driven by the belief that learning environments must be living ones, as Dr. Maria Montessori once said, directed by higher intelligence, arranged by an adult prepared for this mission. As Dr. Lorenz looked ahead to new projects, including the creation of a doctoral program at Sarasota University with his peers and curator, Dr. Michael Dorr, he knew that his journey was far from over. His legacy would continue to grow, nurturing the minds of students and educators alike, ensuring that future generations would carry forward the torch of curiosity, equity, and self-determined learning.
So definitely not all heroes wear capes, because I have the privilege of being in a room with one, and I hope you get to experience and meet him sometime, Dr. Lorenz. And wow, well, how what do you think of that story? Did it capture your profile well?
It was all I could do to hold back the tears because I'm pretty emotionally forward.
Yeah,
And it's good I'm wearing glasses because if I'd had my contacts in, I wouldn't have been able to read
read
them
it.
because the water flowed over my cornea. Um, it it does accurately describe me, and
Yeah,
I think that as it describes me, it's a humbling experience to actually read a story about yourself. I don't think that I've ever done that. I've imagined these things as I look at the compilation of my experiences on my uh, resume or my vitae, but to actually read about it in a narrative sense, um, as I know, everybody has a story,
yeah.
and it's been a very interesting opportunity to sit here with you this evening and share this with your listeners
Yeah.
because if it were to touch one person, then it's done a good job at offering people the value in their mindset to say, I'm going to go out and do what I love. And not that it doesn't require work, it does. It requires work every day. But at the end of the day, that as you quietly offered at the end, I smile. And just in fact, uh, just yesterday, I had a student who came to me a couple of weeks ago. She said, my mom wanted me to be a physician and I want to be an architect. I said, go to the counseling office. We'll get you an appointment.
Yeah.
You can change your major.
Yeah.
It's your life.
Yeah.
And she actually shared that with the entire class yesterday.
Wow.
And it was so moving that this young woman, in her bright age of 17 and a half,
Yeah.
shared that with me. What trust I've been able to procure from this next generation. And I have such hope for them.
Well, I'm in the room with you, and I've been in the room with you before, and I feel so privileged to have shared this experience, because seeing your heart and seeing who you really are, and seeing because there's lots of people in the room at chorus practice. You don't really always see people. I've seen you, but to have seen you tonight, to really see you, is profound, and that's my my favorite part of this experience. And it's so profound what you've done.
You have no tissue in here.
I know. I don't think we've come to tears before. Uh, to see what you've done and written down. At first, like when I write these stories or have these stories produced by ChatGPT, sometimes they're a little bit funny and they're silly and they kind of make fun of the person. But like ChatGPT, which is actual intelligence, read your profile and said, "This is a profound person," and wrote something powerful, right? Because that's what you deserve. That's the only way we can really truly describe your life. I feel like reading these stories, like these silly stories, seems pointless now, because I just want to hear more stories about you and stories about your.
Well, I want to learn to know Kai, and I want to go to the top of the sand hill that he sat on, and I want to travel to wherever that is that Kai is, because he's an example of the many people that I've experienced in my efforts, and there are many very close to my circle. The director of our teacher education program, Sarah Nelson, I call her my work wife because she's someone who I came to know so many years ago, and then there's our principal at the Cottonwood School, Jody Ann Beeson, and we actually we hadn't met. I had written the petition to authorize Cottonwood School, and then due to some circumstances, I disassociated for a period of time. But meanwhile, she was hired. She got the charter, and she put it together. And then I reassociated later, and went to see the school, and I was mesmerized by the fact that she put my ideas into action. That school on the hill that you found, that you went to visit once upon a time, and she and I have been connected with synergy ever since. And since then, we've been able to bring in great leaders, and those are the things that help move our society forward. I believe that peace education is at the core of our ability to love one another.
So what do you think is, like, so many people have these dreams and these passions? What made Norman take the step and actually do it? Like, what if someone is saying they have these passions and they have these excitements? What really pushed you to actually do it?
My fourth grade teacher.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned him. Him is a
Her.
her.
Yeah.
This is think about that. That's one person that's probably in fourth grade. She probably is gone, right? She's
Yeah.
probably an older lady, and how she so profoundly affected you, and because of that, the work you've done have been. It's almost like you're reading this is almost like your opus, right? It's like
Some extent.
it's Norman's opus. This is your opus. This just comes together so musically and perfectly. And you said you estimated 25,000 people have
Yeah.
gone on and probably followed their dreams. Not all of them, of course, and you did that.
Yeah. I did it quietly, I think. Carol, my fourth grade teacher, Carol Knight Travis, was a force to be reckoned with as a very oftentimes authoritarian. It just so happens that, that children's book that I spoke about, I'll give a little bit of a teaser,
Yeah.
is about a school bus, because my childcare growing up on a farm was I rode an hour to and from school each day.
Oh gosh.
And each of those bus drivers were amazingly protective to not only me, but other children on the bus, obviously all, because they had to take such amazing responsibility to get us to school with these big, monstrosity buses, and pay attention in the mirror to all the children, and then watch the traffic. And I actually just bought a bus today.
I've ridden on one of your buses.
You
Actually,
have.
I was going to talk about if you guys are in Sacramento around Christmas and you see a school bus with Christmas lights
Yeah, it's us.
driving around. I think I've ridden it twice actually. In fact, my son Finn got to ride.
Yeah, it was a bus actually renovated by some bus lovers, but it was a bus that I rode myself as a middle and high school student
Wow.
in Elk Grove Unified. And so, compiling Carol along with all those different bus drivers that just allowed me to say who I am, and their response to be giving in a way that you are who you are, and we accept you for who you are. That trajectory, as I found Montessori and began working with Karen and Cindy, who were incredible mentors, along with Sue and Drina and Cindy and Shirley and Debbie, and all of those early colleagues, propelled me to start my own school and build them in across the region, and then go into charter education. And it just was a matter of just meeting more people and addressing those pieces.
Wow. So you have all these. I can't even remember my question because I'm flabbergasted and I'm flustered and aghast. And I didn't know that you just were this so profound, right? And you had done this. I knew you had done some things, but I didn't know you founded these organizations. And I feel privileged to be in the room with you. It's like royalty.
Goodness,
teaching
I wouldn't
royalty.
go that far, but
Okay.
I'm still a human.
Okay.
Right.
You might be a queen, right?
Maybe a queen
Okay.
a few times. Yeah. Yeah. There was definitely a time that I can look back in the chorus that I was Penny Boykins, party planner from Poughkeepsie, New York. And my 3-year-old daughter yelled, "Daddy, what are you doing up there on the stage?" in a poodle skirt.
That's funny.
It was beautiful.
Well, I'm going to say that we have about a minute, and if this large part of my listeners are people between the ages of 19 and 30, and so what message would you like to give them about life? And we've got like,
Keep your dream. Make a dream. If you have ideas, put them out there in front and explore them and discover them, and never take no for an answer.
never take no for an answer. So
Go live your dream. Learn to love what you do so that you can go do what you love.
and try to make it part of your identity and who you are and what you do, and every failure is just an opportunity to try something else, right?
And to thank your family. I think Ed, my husband, Maddie, and Tim, our children.
Yeah, you're so lucky, and you have the perfect, almost like the perfect Norman. What's that painter? That Americana painter, Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
You have the Norman Rockwell life.
Yeah.
If you ever painted a gay picture, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to know you, and we're almost getting to the end here. And thank you so much for coming on. This was cool. We only read two stories, and I loved what we did, and I loved what we talked about. And so thank you for coming on.
I just said to my my husband this morning, I get to talk to my children oftentimes each day. Sochi and Zach, their respective spouses, and the beauty of how family integrates with your community is paramount.
That's so great.
So if you need to create family, you find what we call chosen family, and you and I are chosen family.